friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. It has happened to all of us. You know those old potatoes sitting in the back of your pantry, the ones with really weird sprouts growing out of them that almost look alien? Well, most people throw those in the trash. Today, I want to show you how these forgotten potatoes can turn into pounds and pounds of fresh food for your family, pretty much for free. I'm going to show you a visual demonstration of 3 different sprouting stages, which stage is prime for planting, what to do if your potatoes have sprouted too much, then take you out to the garden and show you exactly how I grow over 100 pounds of potatoes every year. Let's get started. If you would like help planting a productive garden, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for a free garden printable. We calculated quantities for a year's supply of the most common garden vegetables and organized them into a neat chart to help you plan. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming tutorials on gardening and food preservation, food storage, and more. Okay, let's start out by talking about potato sprouting. I have potatoes at 3 different stages here on my counter, and each one, one's not ready, one's way past ready, and one is just right. I bet you can tell which one that is. But if you are brand new to planting and growing potatoes, you do want, if you have time, you do want to pre-sprout your potatoes to about this stage. Now these are almost getting a little bit too high. Right about here, where the size of this sprout is just barely poking out of that potato, that's really the ideal time to go ahead and plant. I'm sure you have heard the term the eyes of a potato. You can actually cut a potato around into chunks as long as each one has an eye, which an eye will become a sprout. Here's an eye on a potato. There's an eye on a potato. Each one of those will turn into sprouts. That will eventually turn into a sprout. This little cluster will eventually turn into a sprout. Oh, it looks like a little silly face. This will turn into a sprout. So you can absolutely cut the potato in half. This side will have a sprout. This side will have a sprout, and then you have 2 potato plants out of 1 potato. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that. But if you, in the world of ideal, perfect planting potato conditions, these are not quite ready to plant. These are considered pre-sprouted, and they are ready to plant. I'm going to cut these and get multiple potato plants out of these 1 potato, so I'm not putting it into the ground just like this, but you absolutely can. You can absolutely plant potatoes whole. When you plant potatoes whole, more than likely you are going to get fewer potatoes, but they generally will be bigger. The reason why is because that potato plant has all of this energy to pull from, versus if you cut it in half, it now only has 50% of that energy to pull from, but you're going to get more potatoes. So plant the potato whole, you're going to get fewer potatoes that are likely going to be bigger. Go ahead and cut it up into sections and you will get more potatoes, but they will likely be smaller. It's just a choice depending on what you want to do. Now these potatoes are way too sprouted. This is not ideal, and the reason why this is not ideal, even though it looks like we're getting a good head start on plant production or plant growing, what's actually happening is these stems have already pulled a lot of energy from this potato. I don't know if you can see, but this potato is a lot more wrinkly than this one right here. And this one right here isn't wrinkly at all. And the more that this potato puts more energy into the plant, and the older, that it gets, the more wrinkly it's going to get. Ideally, we want all of the energies, the potato's initial energy, to go into root production and not necessarily a whole lot of stem growth. If you were to plant this potato into the ground right now, in about 2 weeks, you will see a little green sprout poke up out of the ground about this big. And that's going to be ideal. You can see here it is already about, what is that, maybe 3 or 4 inches, and there's no greenery at all. That's why this is not ideal. The energy has been essentially wasted on stem production. But I do want to make sure to tell you that this is not lost. I absolutely still plant this. I'm going to get the camera set up and I'm going to show you how I would plant it. Okay, womp womp. Look, at all of my potatoes. Looks really kind of weird. This happened because I had a little bit too much light exposure in my laundry room. So ideally, these are potatoes from last year's crop that I saved for seed potatoes. So I did intend for these to sprout. I just didn't intend for them to produce this much stem production. But ideally, when you are storing potatoes for seed potatoes that you're going to be using for next year's crop, you want to store them in the cool, dry, dark place for as long as possible. We harvested these in, I want to say April, and it is February right now. So they are still good. They're not, you know, just rotten. But they are past their prime in the sense that they put too much energy here. But I will absolutely still grow these. Y'all know me, I'm all about, well, if you're new to the channel, you might not know, but I'm all about doing the thing anyway, even if it's not perfect. I have absolutely gotten good potatoes out of way over sprouting like this. Here's what you do. Break it off. It really is that simple, y'all. And it doesn't kill the plant. You're not killing the plant by taking off the stems. I promise. Promise, promise, promise. Just snip that stem off, and you do want to snip it off because, again, you don't want to, if you keep it on and you plant this stem production is going to steal a lot of energy from this potato, where we really need this, what's left in this potato, to feed and give nutrients to green plant growth and, more importantly, root and potato formation. So snip off those big branches, big stems. Just snap them off. You're not going to hurt anything. Look at this, both of these sprouts. I would cut this potato in half and plant them just like this. Okay, so all is not lost. Absolutely still plant these. Just break off that stem first. Okay, now let's go and talk about planting these. One of the easiest ways to grow potatoes is the deep mulch method. Of course, it's not the only way, but it is my go-to way, so that will be the focus of this video. First, you need to prep your soil. If you have hard clay soil, you'll want to use a tiller at least for your first year. If your soil is already in decent shape, a garden rake will do just fine to loosen things up. Once your soil is broken up and loose, sprinkle bone meal over the plot. Potatoes are root crops, so they need phosphorus to develop strong, healthy, big roots. Take a rake or a garden hoe and work it into the soil a bit. After that, you can place your potatoes directly on the soil about 8 to 12 inches apart, keeping your rows between 2 and 3 feet apart. This will give them plenty of room to develop underground. I know it sounds weird, but you're not actually going to dig a hole and plant the potato and then pile soil on top of it. You literally just set the potato straight on top of the soil level. Then cover them all with a thick layer of old hay or straw. Make sure it has not been sprayed with any herbicides because it will harm your plants, or even worse, leave a lasting negative impact in that area of your garden. Once your potato plants grow to be about 6 inches above the soil of the mulch line, it's time to add more hay. I usually do this once or twice during the growing season. I just watch the potato plants grow, and once they're 6 inches showing and peeking up above that mulch level, it's time to add more hay. It really is that simple. The best part about this deep mulch method is the harvest time. Instead of digging with a fork or a shovel, you just push back the hay and collect your potatoes. They'll be sitting there right on top of the soil, fairly clean considering that they've been sitting on dirt all this time. Now let's talk about storing your harvest. The key to keeping potatoes fresh for months is getting 3 things right: curing, temperature, and darkness. You want to let your harvested potatoes cure for about 2 weeks. You want to spread them out in a single layer, somewhere dark and warm, around 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit is perfect. This will help the skins toughen up and heal any nicks that happen during harvest time. After 2 weeks or so, you can move them to their permanent storage spot in an area that's dark, cool, and has good airflow. I usually use ventilated cardboard boxes with holes punched in them. You want to layer your potatoes carefully so that you don't want to pile them too deep or they can bruise. I usually don't go more than 2 layers deep. Check them every few weeks and remove any that show signs of softening, wrinkling, or sprouting. With proper storage, your potatoes can keep anywhere between 4 and 6 months, sometimes even longer. And don't forget, you probably want to set some aside for planting next year. And that's it. You just turned those old sprouted potatoes into a serious food supply using nothing but some hay and pretty minimal effort. I hope that was helpful to y'all, and we will see you next time. Bye.